The Tribeca Festival wrapped up another iteration in June, and we caught a few films there, as we tend to do. It's an interesting festival that gives you a smattering of narratives and docs, some with famous names and directors attached, and some with people you may not have heard of before. It's always a mixed bag from Tribeca, but I find we usually end up getting a few films that pique our interest and really will are worth recommending for people too. So these are some of the movies that I think we found the most interesting at this year's Tribeca Festival. I'm going to start out with one called A Tree Fell in the Woods. This is a interesting, suspenseful, romantic drama of sorts about a pair of two couples who go on a retreat together and find their lives and relationships thrown out of whack after some revelations occur. I thought it was a really interesting, fun sort of relationship drama in how these people navigate these relationships in terms of their fulfillment of self, right? Because this is really a movie that interrogates not just like, do you want to be with your partner, but how does being with your partner affect you and make you feel about yourself? And that's where it was the most interesting to me. It also has the benefit of having a pretty good cast with Alexandra Daddario, Daveed Diggs, Josh Gad, and Ashley Park in the lead roles. What'd you make of A Tree Fell in the Woods?
So like the way you put it, it's one of those movies where you're putting them out in the middle of nowhere just to see how their dynamics specifically work. With two
Yeah.
of them being friends since they were, I think they were like in high school or maybe
Yeah,
elementary
something like
school.
that.
Yeah, they've had this like baggage with each other until they've married their respective partners. Like you're saying, whatever they represent to them, it's all within their own like closed system as friends, as partners. But you did state what the incident was, right? Because I don't want to spoil what it is that they see.
I, yeah, I didn't say it, so I guess
Okay.
we
Well,
don't
an
have to
incident
spoil it.
happens that causes the couples to have to either keep a secret from each other or
Hmm.
that ends up unraveling who they really are to each other. And it reminded me of movies like, there's like a slew of them, but Happily was probably the best one that I've seen in recent memory, where it's able to use this alien subplot that this one has nothing to do with aliens, but
Yeah.
in order to get a group of friends and all the baggage, all the history that they may have had
Yes.
comes to fruition at this Airbnb, right? Just like these guys are out in the woods. Think of
Yeah, it's a
stuff like
true
It Comes Inside as well.
right. It's a true off my chest movie, right? People are
Yeah,
just getting every sort of resentment or lingering doubt off their chest
yeah,
in a confrontational drama that, like,
exactly.
it's maybe not pitched all the way to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but it's like
Nah,
definitely in the legacy of stories like that where they're stuck in this house together working through their issues.
yeah. And then again, you and I got to see this streaming, which is where I think it is exactly where it's supposed to be. Like you see this one
Yeah.
in theaters, you're going to be like, okay, maybe it's missing a couple of things. It's not as strong as it should be. But as a streaming movie, this is exactly what you want to see on Hulu or on
Yeah,
Netflix.
like a solid 3 star from me for sure.
Yep.
Andy Kaufman Is Me is a documentary about the late comedy legend, the enigmatic mind who would pull off extremely subversive public performance acts. This is a film that gets into some of his personal reactions to his own legacy and stuff, because they are able to utilize some of his diary
Mm-hmm.
entries in order to illuminate what Andy Kaufman felt like going through his very public life, given that we no longer have the ability to talk to Andy Kaufman. But there are some
Yeah.
talking head interviews with various family members or friends. I thought it was a really interesting retelling of his story. For those of you who've seen the Jim Carrey movie Man on the Moon, you are familiar with Andy's life and career and the really unique path he took as somebody who was in some ways like the birth of alternate comedy.
A
The
little bit.
like it, it's so not funny that it's funny kind of stuff in a lot of ways.
Everyone who
He
you think was influenced by him is in this movie talking about him.
how they were influenced by him exactly. And so I thought it was a really interesting portrait of his genius and the conflicted space that it left him in, as people, reacted sometimes in ways very negatively to
Hmm.
his work. What'd you think of Andy Kaufman As Me?
The John Mulaney has copied this man bar for bar, sir. I know he started off with a kid show with puppets, that
Yeah.
he was doing all of these other mixed style stuff. Yeah, no, you could definitely see from. I want to say Heidecker, I think, tries to pull the obnoxiousness from him the most.
Yeah.
Everybody
Tim
else tries to
Heidecker
do
might be
awkward,
right.
but the
Tim
obnoxious side
Heidecker
is.
gets the confrontational side to Andy Kaufman in a way
Yeah,
that
easily.
other people don't as much.
But it's fascinating just to see the ups and downs of what he did in order to be able to get his shows. I thought it was interesting that how he would go from being, like you were saying, confrontational or very like rude or mean to then very emotional at times. Like he had that special that they talk about, and he hits you with like, I want a special guest and I want it to be Howdy Doody, this puppet from a show that got canceled that meant a lot to
Mm-hmm.
him. So instead of starting off with all this like crass jokes, he's telling him that he loves this puppet and that he meant a lot to him and that he's like kind of hoping that he is that for someone at home. And it's just fascinating to see like where his mind goes and all these different things, and his push against seriousness. They do, like you were saying, a lot of recordings where they show you what his personal life was like and who he was with and what they went through to put up with his geniusness or whatever you want to call it. And that he always found seriousness as being the punchline. When someone takes something for real, that's when he's finally where he's supposed to be. And he
Right.
loved living in that, we're in the era of the rehearsal, we're in the era of past Borat and all these different things where it's the acting within reality that they find exciting. It's when someone slaps you on TV and everyone feels uncomfortable because they don't know if it's staged or not.
Right.
And that's what he thrives off of, and I thought that was great. And then just the way that they embody a lot of his career, his time at SNL, him getting kicked out of SNL. I thought it was a really great documentary that I think not only embodied him as an individual, as an artist, but then also gives you most of the beats of what you expect from a documentary that's supposed to cover a person and their ups and downs. Also,
Yeah,
I don't know
for
if you
sure.
stayed till the end credits. They let a piece of audio play for the post credits, and I thought it was perfect.
I don't know if I
He was
did actually.
He's breaking the fourth wall that you're listening to his audio tape. And how did you get it? Okay, you hang up first. 3, 2, 1. I said you first. Why are you still here? It's great. It's beautiful.
A genius. Just to also get to experience more of his comedy, I think it's
That
always
too, yeah.
enjoyable. So yeah,
Well, made me respect him even more than I already knew he was an idol.
for sure. People and Meat is a film that you got to catch at the festival about three elderly people who are trying to grease their insides and eating different types of pork around Seoul, Korea.
Yeah.
You're enjoying this one. Tell me a little more about it.
I thought this one was pretty good. I was not expecting it, but it's just three elderly people who are all pretty much living on their own, and they're just making their way down, living on the streets, and eventually they all come across of each other and they're fighting. But after a while, they realize, like, if we actually came together, one of us has a house, one of us knows how to cook, and the other one knows how to go get the meat. And they realize that they can, get together, and they create this bond over just eating meat. And then they realize, well, there's one thing we could do that nobody else can get away with. If we go to a restaurant and eat everything, we could just walk out because no one's going to think lesser of these old people who are doing this. And then they become this like viral sensation where everybody knows that there's a group of three elderly people who are going to come and dine and dash. That story then builds up from their past and the secrets that they don't really know from each other since they've only met when they're older. They don't know the entire history of why they ended up on the streets and are alone together. But I thought it was a really nice story just in, how people interact and come together over food. And then just seeing that the badness in each other's characters was also something that they hadn't forgiven in themselves and such. So it's a really beautiful story. People to meet. One of the ones that surprised me out of the fest, especially.
Nice. Another one that from the fest that I felt was pretty effective emotionally and also surprisingly funny. Honeyjoon. This is an interesting film from director Lillian Merel. It's about a Persian Kurdish woman named Layla and her American daughter June, who take a trip together to Portugal in honor of her husband, the daughter's father, who passed away. He apparently loved this place in Portugal, so they wanted to go visit it in his honor. And they end up sort of taking like a couple's honeymoon trip together. They're staying at a resort where everybody else is there romantically except for this mother-daughter pair, so they keep getting offered things like couples massages and things like that. So there's some sort of like like awkward comedy just from that. There's also this really interesting cultural story because her mother is more attached to her Persian Kurdish heritage, and she's constantly watching news coverage of protests happening. Whereas the American daughter is like less connected to her family and her heritage, and more is into the idea of like taking a fun trip and having a good time and having a whirlwind romance with their tour guide while she's there. And I think it's a really effective story of like coming to a greater understanding and appreciation for who your parents are, what your family is, and also coming into your own as an adult. The daughter here, June, is played by Aiden Mieri, who I pointed out to you. I recognized her from the what's her name? That
The
show. I
Showtime
love
show.
that for you. The
Yeah,
Showtime show that we both enjoyed. But she's shown up in a lot of things, and she's very good here in the lead. Just sort of like it plays it like a little bit snobby and obnoxious, maybe a little bratty is the right word, but like you also understand the emotional baggage she's dealing with. And I thought there was just a lot of interesting context put into this story that otherwise could seem really like singularly focused. It's not that. There's a lot of stuff that the movie is playing around with in an interesting way. Honeyjoon, I liked it quite a bit.
nice.
Um,
Got on my
and
list.
then the last movie that I wanted to mention from Tribeca was the narrative award winner, Happy Birthday. This is a film directed by Sarah Goher, and it's a really interesting story about this young girl who is employed as sort of a live-in maid for this family in Egypt, trying to help uh, her friend or her employer's daughter and her employer with a birthday party. So she's going around with the mother of the household trying to help prepare things for this girl's birthday party. And because she's a similar age to the young girl, they're like close friends. So she's really excited about getting to share this moment with her. But this thing that is sort of lurking within the movie is this class difference that exists between her and the family that she works for, and the idea of whether or not she can be fully accepted into this part of society. And the way that this film will gradually reveal things about its characters and transform from what feels like a cute, sweet, light comedy about this mother who is dealing with all these extenuating circumstances and trying to make sure her daughter has a pleasant birthday, it becomes this much more complex film about the role that different people play in these caste-based class systems, and whether you can truly transcend your group, your social group. So I went from thinking it was like a sweet, nice movie to a pretty profound and strong one. I see why it was the narrative award winner. It's probably the best movie that I had the chance to see at Tribeca. Really, really effective. I thought this was quite strong. I hope it's one that like lingers and gets a decent festival run. Maybe people check it out. It would not surprise me if this is a movie that ends up like on an Oscars shortlist for best foreign film.
Damn.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Tribeca is you do end up getting some of these interesting stuff. They've evolved. They were once the Tribeca Film Festival, and now it is more general. Now they have TV and podcasts and video games and all kinds of stuff. But
Everything.
they still have some good movies as well.
Good stuff
All right,
out there.
so
So let us know what you guys saw, if there was anything interesting. I'm curious to see how they continue to expand it, especially like you said that they're getting into games and the like. I've appreciated that they've kept an online component for those of us who are not in New York, but
yep.
you know what we haven't seen yet is you get studios folding into studios, but we haven't gotten festivals folding into festivals yet.
Oh, so you want to see
Just
what
saying.
the Tribeca Sundance Megafest?
The Tellier South by West. I don't know.